Conservation Commission is now called to order under the State Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Hanson Local Bylaw, Article 3-13, Section 5. This opening statement will apply for all business conducted at this meeting. And this meeting of the Commission will be audio recorded, and that's our standard practice. May we have a roll call, please? Ed Hill. T.J. Rookie. Dave Mansfield. Sharon Laporte. Phil Clements.
Lon Woodward.
Frank Scallinger.
So, all of our commissioners and all of our staff are present. The quorum is here. We shall proceed with our agenda. The first thing on the agenda, scheduled for 7 p.m., is a new hearing for notice of intent. And may we have the reading of that, the legal notice of that hearing, sir?
The Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent for a new neighbor reality represented by Venus Consulting Engineers, LLC, 3 Main Street, Lakeville, Mass. 2347, EP number SE 175-0748. New hearing. Parcel and project. Proposal to perform perk test and to upgrade the septic system to Title V standards within a 100-foot of bordering vegetated wetlands and banked off from an intermittent stream. It is also a tributary to the surface water supply at 16 Upton Street, Act 2, Lot 338. The applicant is filing under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Section 313. Chapter 313, Section 5, and rules and regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission for findings.
Thank you, Clerk, Mr. Mansfield. The floor is yours, sir. I assume you're representing the applicant?
Yep.
You may introduce yourself for the record.
Will Connolly, Venus Consulting Engineers, for the record, on behalf of New Neighbor Realty. The site is 16 Upton Street. There's an existing one-bedroom house with a failed septic on site. There's a BVW and a perennial stream to the north of the property. So basically what we've done is put together a conceptual plan, septic design, in the hope that we can perform a perk test and then modify the design once that is needed. So we're proposing a Presby with advanced treatment. We're pushing everything as far away from the BVW and stream as we can. If there's any questions, I can have to answer them.
Just for orientation, Upton Street, it's not one of the more frequently traveled ways in town. Whereabouts in Hanson are we speaking?
I'm not very familiar with Hanson.
North, south, east, west, near Big Street?
Monpont area.
Monpont area.
It's next to Union Park Street.
Okay. So that actually helps quite a bit, and we will didn't mean if to interrupt you for any other things you were going to say in an introductory manner, or I think we have in our hands a engineering drawing, which is that. There's certainly a lot of fine print on it. The drawing of the site itself is a pretty small scale. I'd like to ask our agent if he has any general comments, maybe based on more study than we're able to do at this moment, and maybe with a larger scale plan. Dr. Scallinger, any comments or questions for the applicant?
Well, the full-size plan is before you, so that little box down at the bottom is the site. I've been out there with Terry McGovern, one of the people who works for ZECE.
Okay.
And we discussed where this system might be able to go. We basically decided that it could only go to the left of the house. There is a stream in the back of the house. The lot is very small. But it's an existing non-conforming lot.
Okay.
So the repair is exempt from the Rivers Protection Act. However, the wetland in the back is very close to where they're proposing to put the septic tank and the pump chamber. Hence, the reason for the variance request. Most of what they're going to do is within 50 feet of the wetland and the bank along the stream. I do have a question, though.
Sure.
The way this application was made was to request permission to do perk tests and then do the septic system. However, the perk tests haven't been done, and so, because this hasn't been approved yet, and the design of the system depends on the perk test. So what we're faced with here is a proposed system that may or may not end up being the actual system that's designed. So I'm feeling that the applicant will have to come back, unless for some reason it turns out that this design is exactly what they want. I do have one question for you, though. You're proposing a Presby system, and under the rules for Presby system, isn't it necessary to be able to have a reserve for a full-size system if this system fails?
So I believe, I'm not sure if that's the case under the remedial use approval for repairs, but we could absolutely show a conventional reserve area on there.
Really?
If that's something you would like to see. I mean,
Where?
yeah, it's not gonna, there's no way we're gonna be able to get it to meet
The lot,
setback.
the lot is really too small to
Yeah.
put in a conventional system.
I'm
I
just
get
looking
that.
at the, I'm sorry, Frank. I'm looking at the plan here. It looks like the side-to-side dimensions are 120 feet for the lot, and the depth of the lot is 80 feet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's an 80-foot by 120-foot lot with a house, with a paved driveway, and with a slope down to wetland, which is partly on the property, and all that.
Yeah.
But it's an existing home.
That's all I have.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts from other commissioners?
I think it's pretty ambitious to fit all of that within the constraints that are there. I don't quite see how that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really room for anything else.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
and I don't know what that present system is.
That was going to be my question. What do we have for
Right.
an existing system for the existing house at this moment? What is there?
There was no as-built on file, and we haven't been able to get out there and get into the basement yet, or to perform the perk test.
The house has bathrooms, though, right?
Yeah, I'm not
Just,
exactly sure where the existing system is.
Right, you need to find that out.
because what we were doing, what we always do here is we like to compare what's there with what's being proposed. And presuming it's always an improvement, that's always helpful to the applicant's case. It's hard to know what we're comparing it to right now without any information.
Right.
One other question.
Sure.
And I think I asked Terry this question before. Whenever a variance to work within the 50-foot buffer is requested, it's typical of the applicant to offer mitigation for that in some way. And I wonder what the applicant is offering.
Yeah, so that was actually going to be one of my questions for you. What is it exactly you guys would like to see? We will happily put it on the plan, but we just don't know what you would be looking for as far as mitigation goes.
To that very specific and appropriate question, perhaps I have to know, is there a name to the, you say there's a stream out back? Yes, a perennial stream. Is there a name to that, or any other description of where it goes? Assume it's headed towards Montpon's Pond eventually.
It's tributary
Yeah.
to Montpon's.
Directly
and
tributary.
it's tributary, therefore, to a drinking water source.
Right, that's key. And the topography, the dotted contour lines on here, are those 1 foot intervals, 2 foot intervals, or what?
Those are 1 foot.
Okay. So the elevation difference between the front of the property and the back is what, 10 or 12 feet?
Yeah, 8, 9 feet. About.
It's pretty flat where the house is.
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
But
And
the bank
then there's
behind
a
the house
drop-off.
goes down.
So we don't yet know the results of the perk test because they've not been done. So we don't know if this exact system will or will not be the type installed. And then you raised the good question of what might there be for mitigation expectations on our part. All of which, without rushing over any of that, because they're very important questions, I've got a feeling we are perhaps headed to a continuation of the hearing, but we have opened it. Before we go any further, are there any abutters or other concerned parties with questions or comments on what's being proposed in 16 Upton Street? You know, there's other things later.
I don't think we have enough information to proceed.
I will put the beginning, at least, of the discussion on the table for the mitigation. We have, in some other cases in other parts of town, gone with mitigation that occurs off-site of one form or another, whether it's vegetation removal and replacement or some other special environmental project that's going on. It might be, looking around the table here, that the commission may have a worthwhile environmental project or mitigation opportunity that's not too far from this place, in the same watershed overall, that to which the applicant could contribute in a way that would sort of balance the environmental books or the ecological books. I don't at this moment have one in mind, but we have been increasingly thinking about those sorts of things because it's in the public interest to do so. So we have a lot of questions. Some answers are here, but not, some information is here, but not all the answers.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
We can't even really consider the proposed septic system without the perk test.
Right.
You said.
That's certainly what we're saying.
So, is there any option to allowing them to do a perk test or not?
In other words, what sort of approval can we or not we to offer such that the perk test can proceed with no procedural questions? It may be that we have a motion, a second discussion, and a vote on that, including permission to work within the 50-foot buffer, because the 50-foot buffer is very close to, I see something drawn on there, is that 50 or 20 foot? I can't read it.
That's the 20 or 25, the 50-foot buffer is the front of the property.
So I think we would need to have at least those two votes to support the applicant going forward with what we want to know and what they want to know. And I will check with our staff here too procedurally any other specific actions we would take besides continuing the hearing to a date and time specific.
I could not give them a blanket permit because the work is within 50-foot buffer.
Right, so sometimes
So,
that's possible, but not
the-
here.
The possibility here would be that you do as you just said, vote to permit the perk test to proceed, and then continue the hearing on the order.
Mm.
But you'll have to vote also to work within the 50-foot buffer.
Right. There may be details in here in the fine print about erosion control measures that would be taken for any work, including perk tests, right?
Yep. So we have the sill sock and sill fence, which we show kind of wrapping.
Okay, down below left corner, I see that, yeah. Oh, the chair would entertain a motion to, number one, to allow work within the 50-foot buffer zone for this particular project. Do I hear such a motion?
But limited to the perk test.
That wording will be part of the motion, yes. Is that what a motion that I hear?
Yeah. Second.
Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry? Okay. Opposed, one, and, so 3-1-0, the work within the 50-foot buffer is approved for the perk test. Secondly, the perk test itself, we should authorize that, again, with all due regard to the silt sock and other erosion control measures as proposed. So I hear a motion to allow the perk test on that. I hear a second.
Second.
In further discussion, I would just say, again, this is not what we usually do. We usually have a more complete set of information before us, but we're simply trying to be reasonable here and to get the information that everybody needs to go forward, no matter what your stake in the process is. Motion's made and seconded to allow the perk test only. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Sounds like 5-0-0. And I think the only other thing we can do tonight really is to continue the hearing. And our next opportunities would look like, we have some dates here.
We can do December 21st.
If we meet December 21st,
We'll do 7 o'clock.
which is the only other meetings that we might have the rest of the year, I personally wouldn't want to meet any later than the 21st.
Well, before we get too far, do you anticipate being able to do the perk test and complete your design for 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I mean, I know we can get the perk test done, the design done. I think it's going to be a matter of the town's availability.
Parties besides us, I think the Board of Health would be involved.
Yeah.
Well, we will hold a slot for you
Okay.
then on the 21st, because we will be as available as we know how to be. On the 21st, we have 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
Mr. Healy?
I am not anticipating being here that day. I just know there's going to be a forum with everybody
Okay.
else.
Any other availability concerns? I know I'll be here. Looks like we'll be okay. Plan then, entertain a motion to continue this hearing to our next meeting on December 21st at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Here a second? Second has been made. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Meeting-
Well, I'd like to suggest that your company take the plan for the site and make it a separate sheet so that we can see it.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
It's good to have a lot of notes, but it's also good to have a drawing that leaves no questions, just so we can make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. And if we have to add the mitigation details and all that, I'm sure we'll have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put it on 2 sheets either way.
Yeah. Even though it's continued the hearing, it's still open. Has anyone in connect with the project made the estimate of how much surface area is going to be disturbed by this in terms of square feet or something like that? We can guess by looking at the map of the drawing, but
Yeah.
But throwing darts before we have a system designed.
right. But I'm just thinking ahead to the question of if mitigation is going to be done. so we can give thought to it between our meetings. The staff might be able to research some ideas so as to be better prepared. If there isn't an estimate, we can make one based on what we see here before us, but we'll give thought to the mitigation piece as well.
Okay.
So we stand continued, and we thank you for your information. And certainly there can be any communication between you folks and the office as needed between now and the 21st.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. We are scheduled, sorry it's later than 7:15, to have some discussion with the North-South River Watershed Association and representatives thereof, the Indian Head River Steering Committee. May we be introduced? Sure, please. That would be great if you have anything you'd like to put up there, or if you want to just project better to the room.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't have
No,
the
yes.
slides. Yeah, I don't need that. And do you have the printouts? I can just kind of walk you through.
I assume it would be this?
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yep, and then I can-
Is there any benefit of projecting?
I mean, is it possible?
What?
Is it possible to do?
Do we have the remote around to turn on this? I stand in awe of anyone with technological help available
I know that's
to our presenter.
I don't know anything about it because it's the Whitman Hanson Community Access
Yeah.
person does it, so.
I think
if-
maybe, like, show my slides to my computer, that probably people
Well,
can see.
The commission is the primary recipient of the information, but are they similar to this?
It's exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
then just proceed.
Okay, yeah. So as mentioned, I'd like to nominate a regard association. We recently received a grant from the State Natural Resources Management Fund to fund a feasibility study to look at the possibility of removing 11 Spore Dam and the State Street cross street dam to open up habitat and restore and reconnect the Indian River. So we're at the very early stages of this process, and I'm here tonight to just kind of begin what will be about a year or so long education and outreach process to Hanover, Hanson, and Pembroke. We decided to start with the relevant boards and committees in all three towns. And open space here as well?
Well, I'm open space. There has been sort of a lull in activity of the Open Space Committee for many reasons. We all cite COVID, and that's part of it. But there's other factors too. However, there's tremendous overlap in both membership and communication, so it's not a barrier at this point.
Perfect, okay, great. So yeah, we're looking at open space, Concom, planning board, select board, and historical commission. All in all three towns. So, and again, this is kind of a year-long educational process. Of course, there's many opportunities for us to share information about the project, but really, one of the largest reasons I'm here is to start to get feedback from residents and community members, questions, comments, concerns about the potential for these projects. So, if you want to go to the next page, so just basic dam information, the dam infrastructure, we still river stream or river to hold water back. Dams take all different forms. So the top two pictures there is 11 Spore Dam. Relatively highly engineered dam, got a fish ladder coming out the middle, and then the bottom two pictures are the cross street, State Street cross street dam.
By the way,
Yes.
one piece of feedback already.
Sure.
We are highly confident, bordering on certainty, actually beyond, we are certain, the entire dam and bridge structure per se are in Hanson. The town line, where the street name would change from State Street to Cross Street, is right where the culvert, which was basically the mill race from the dam, is. And the sign, the posted sign for the town line is at that culvert. And I think that the culvert will come into discussion in this also,
Yes.
maybe in all due time.
Yes,
But this commission is most familiar with just calling it the State Street Dam,
Okay.
and the Robert Hammond Memorial Bridge, which is,
okay.
he lived right near there, and, you know, unfortunately, World War II passed. But
Yeah, I mean, there's...
we don't mean to be over-possessive, but we think it's good to be accurate in these
Absolutely.
things.
So there's so many different names for both dams. So for example, we just had a series of reports completed, and the consultant showed that Indian Head Dam, and they called, for this dam, and then they called the Luddensport Dam, the Curtis Crossing Dam. So I think there's 3 or 4 different names. So obviously
Someone called this the Indian Head Dam?
Yeah.
First time we've ever heard the term.
Yeah, same. So
After 70 years.
we were trying to keep the nomenclature similar to what communities are using, but I'll be sure to reflect that.
Okay. So State Street Dam works for
So
us.
the State Street Dam, so you can see it's very different, right? It's basically a series of rocks and boulders that were put into the middle of the river.
Well, it's about a 3-foot drop now. We think it was the remnants of previous dams.
Right, and what likely happened is, you know, a lot of the Thor Dam may have looked similar initially, and then kind of slapped some concrete on top of it over time. So the point is being the dam can take multiple forms, they have multiple purposes. For flood control, storage of water for agricultural, livestock, human supply, recreation, and power generation, for towns, cities, industries. These dams were built to support the industries along the river. Neither, you know, the industries no longer either. And then these are just 2 of, if you go to your next slide, over 3,000 dams in Massachusetts. Spread all over the state. Currently 43 are flood control dams, 44 are licensed hydropower dams, another 80 or so are used as reservoirs, and the other 2,000 or so really, at this point, have no purpose, mainly for recreation, most for similar to these 2, where they were built to support industries in the military. So once you're going to get rid of the human impact, the human benefits, what you're left with is the impact of the dams on the river, on the habitat in the river. So that's the next slide that figure all that. So one of the impacts of dams on the river is blocking fish passage. You've got 2 fish on one side of the dam that can no longer get upstream. So we have multiple anadromous fish that come from the ocean, swim upriver for their spawning habitat with the herring. We also have a number of fish like brook trout that just need to pass through the river. Once you put dams in the river, it becomes a series of ponds. So, you know, no longer allows for that fish passage, but also these ponds sit and they get very hot in the summertime, and that heat can cause losing of algae and other things that cut off oxygen to the fish and other species that live in that habitat. And then also the dams will, as you can see, they have that yellow strip on the bottom. They trap sediment and nutrients, normally would flow down the riverbed. That then blocks the riverbed that once was a home for multiple flora and fauna that would have lived in that area. But it also creates a more shallow impoundment of that area behind the dam. And as the sediment increases, the impoundment itself becomes more shallow, and it can increase risk for breach. And all of these also just degrade the water quality.
Part of our feedback, if not immediately, will get to the point talking about sediments and some of the characteristics there.
Yes, definitely. So the next slide just shows some of the fish species that use the Indian Head River and that are, you know, species that are in trouble. Natural run rivers are one of the most endangered habitats that we have, and then species that rely on those habitats also are in danger of increased populations. There's a river herring. That graph that you see on there shows changes in river herring population over the last 150 years or so. So see, there was the population has increased and decreased quite a bit over time with multiple stressors on these habitats. It's not just the dam. A lot of this major decrease in the 70s had to do with bycatch in the ocean. There's been a lot of work to restore the fisheries in the oceans. So it's been relatively successful, but you also need to make sure you're restoring that habitat that those fish need in order to get upriver and spawn. So it's all really quite connected.
Yeah. These numbers, just detailed commercial, is that from Massachusetts or New England? Or, okay.
Yes, Division Marine Fisheries. Yes, Marine Fisheries. But you also have American eels, Atlantic shad, and the native brook trout, important in the river system. So one of the solutions to help restore these fish populations, if you want to go to the next slide, is remove dams that are no longer used, are no longer in use. So we've thus far removed about 22 dams on the south shore, restoring about 16 miles of rivers. This removal of these 2 dams will lead to another 3 miles of river restoration. If we go...
By the way, that's an interesting stat. 22 dams removed. There's 112 left. Not that they're all candidates for removal, but
Right.
it's just an interesting statistic.
Yeah, it's scratching the surface. So if we move to the next page, we'll see some pictures of some examples of some of those dam removal projects. Just to kind of give you all a sense of before and after, what might look like once the restoration is complete. So 2 pictures on the left are Town Brook and Plymouth. That dam was pretty similar to the Leavenworth Dam. That first picture is looking upstream. The second picture, the picture below, is looking downstream after the removal of the dam. So it really kind of turns these impoundments of these big ponds back into the natural channel of the river. Similarly, on the right, Town Brook, excuse me, perhaps in Situate, picture on the top shows the dam looking upstream, picture on the bottom, similarly looking downstream. And this was taken relatively soon after the dam was removed, and so over time that vegetation does grow in quite a bit.
Yeah. Even closer geographically to us than Plymouth, there's the Jones River in in Kingston, under your way, but the 2 dams have been removed from the Jones River within the last decade or less, and one on Elm Street and one on Wapping Road. And, again, pretty similar to this in terms of before and after.
And that was actually, seriously, just didn't have great pictures of that one, but one of the, moving forward, one of the things I want to do is have do a series of walks for residents who might be interested to look at some of these sites that are closest to the town, so people can really get a sense of what it will look like post-removal.
I might be able to get you pictures of those 2 dams.
Great.
Oh, by the way, not to interrupt, but trying to remember the name of the team, there's a small group of folks representing Hanson and Pembroke and Hanover who either are or will soon be assisting you with sort of feedback and the information flow between different towns, and Hanson does have a representative to that team, one Mr. Matt Dyer.
Yes,
So you and Matt have met and talked, or at least
so I'm
remotely?
running that committee, so we're going to meet next week, and then met him a couple months ago. But
Okay.
yeah, he's kind of my eyes and ears.
Because he used to sit right about here chairing these,
Yeah.
chairing Selectmen's meetings.
That's right. So the next slide is benefits of river restoration project. So one is kind of restoring all of those ecosystem functions that I mentioned were degraded in kind of the cartoon on it. Restoring river herring spawning habitat, restoring passage for the other species that use the river as well. It's also the cultural values of the herring run. Herring is a staple food for Native people and for the early settlers, as well as being a basis for in the food chain for other fish that we like to eat, like sea bass. This is a huge one, eliminating liability for towns and private dam. So Hanson, Hanover, Village Dam, owns the State Street Dam, are owners of this dam. It's already breached a little bit in the middle, but any damages that result from any breach, the towns will be liable for.
Yeah. The dam's a lot lower than it used to be.
Yep.
It isn't even really talked about a lot as being a dam, but when we have when we went through the drought, you could see this 3 or 4 foot high wall of rock that the glacier did not leave there.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
it seems pretty stable as it is, but there it is, and it's too stable if you're a herring.
Yeah, and my first saw it in the summer. So it's been nice to see it now with the run of water from the
Yep.
And, clearly this dam wasn't engineered, right, because it's just a bunch of rock.
Well, we don't know. Their engineers did exist in the 1800s, and there was a tremendous industrial complex there. So someone was drawing things, whether they call themselves an engineer or not, we don't know. But
Sure, the engineers have state standards, right? Central safety
Right.
and capacity. Climate change is another one here, right? The storm that we have much more severe storms, much more often. And we say that we're engineers are very often flagged for storms that happen every 100 years or so, and they happen more frequently. So again, more liability the town and the owners will have as we get those storms and those are the breach. So if you move on to the next slide, so dam removal process. So the first thing is the reconnaissance studies, something I mentioned earlier. So those were completed for both dams. The early last year reconnaissance reports are very high level, general reviews of already existing information. There was some sediment sampling. At the State Street Dam, there is some more severe contamination than there is at the Ludham Ford Dam. Ludham Ford Dam, there's a lot more sediment. So we need to have a better understanding of the levels of contamination in both areas, but also how that sediment management plan will be. So again, the reconnaissance study is very broad overview, and this next step is a feasibility study. So
By the way, the reconnaissance study, who would be considered the authors of that?
Stantec is a
Stantec.
consulting company, SCANT.
Yeah, we'd like that. We always like data, and whether it's a site that's as complex as a fireworks site or anything else, or as simple as a septic tank, and we like information.
Sure. And so these are the feasibility studies, the next step from the reconnaissance. So it looks a lot deeper into sediment sampling. So we're going to get a lot more samples and really understand, first identify where the contamination comes from. If we can tie it to the fireworks site, then we can direct through that process. If it's tied to something else, it's going to be a little bit different. There'll be a hydrologic and hydraulic study to understand how water levels will change, in this Adams Circle neighborhood.
Right.
That, I don't, likely there won't be, water's not going to go higher, it's going to get lower, but that will be, a big area to criticize.
Yeah. The Adams Circle neighborhood was developed shortly before the Wetlands Protection Act and well before the Rivers Protection Act.
Okay.
And in the view of a commission like us, many of the homes on the river side of the development are disappointingly close to the river. And there are photos that, in different circumstances, we've been shown where floodwaters have impinged very close to a few of the houses upstream. You know the one I'm speaking of, right? Yes. And anything that would perhaps reduce those risks ought to be welcome to folks like that.
Sure.
So we shall see going forward.
Sure. The other thing, you're looking at impacts on surrounding infrastructure, so that's an issue with the Rockhampton Memorial Bridge.
Robert Hammond, Memorial.
So because that water level has increased already, there's concern about scouring in the bridge. We need to make sure the footings of that bridge are going to remain sturdy. So that will be a big piece of the feasibility studies, and we'll call the scour analysis to understand what, if anything, needs to be done to shore that up. Understanding historical impacts, will be a historical review. And then also identifying community concerns. The results of this study will give us 40% design renderings that we can use so people can understand what the new river will look like. And we'll also have some better cost estimates. And again, so this study is funded by a grant from the Natural Resource Defense Fund. Money is as a result of the contamination from the fireworks site. It's for off-site damages that resulted as a result of that.
Right. Just to reiterate, because it's such an important point, the fund that Beck is referring to is completely separate from the actual cleanup money for the site. It's mandated under probably federal level at least, but that it be dedicated to restorations in the watershed, and hence this work, and hence your position, and this is good.
Yeah, it's a unique situation where a lot of this work, there's a pot of money already to fund a lot of this work. Some of that money can be used for this and go for design, engineering, and permitting. Construction, there will be some funding available for that, and also to leverage some of that funding to get other funds. There's a lot more funding out there for habitat restoration than there is for infrastructure repairs.
Right.
So feasibility study will be complete. The owners will make a decision about which way to go, whether to move the dams or not, based on the information provided. Then we will move on to design, engineering, and permitting, provide opportunities for public input through hearings, and then construction. So, ideally, the whole process would take 3 to 5 years, so all that depends on, you don't know.
Yeah, number of years to be determined.
Yeah. And then finally, just the timeline for this chunk right here, the feasibility study. So we have an RFR out right now for the engineers. We hope to have engineers selected in January. hope to do a public information session for all three towns in February, once we have the engineer on board, so they can be part of that conversation. And then for the next few months, doing a lot more outreach, so planning community events, doing walks, coming back to boards and committees if needed. And then in September, we hope to have the study complete and have the results of the study that we can then bring back to the town, so the owners can make their final decision about whether they want to move forward or not, and have that decision complete by early 2024. So that's it for me for this kind of first round of outreach. And I just want to get a sense of comments, questions, thoughts, potential partners, potential issues, anything like that we should start to be aware of. Yeah.
Mr. Heel has a question.
You mentioned there's 22 South Shore dams that are being removed, and that's part of your project?
No, completely separate. Great question. So
They've already been.
Two dams, yeah, those have already been removed.
These have already been removed?
Yeah, and so this project is just for these two dams.
Just these two?
Yeah.
And what does it do to, I mean, that's a silly, stupid question, but the ponds along the way? There's only the big pond right at Ludham's is basically, looks like a little path now, right?
If I could use a term, the right term for those is impoundments. They aren't natural ponds, P-O-N-D, they're impounded, P-O-U-N-D. And many of them, like these, have been there so long, no living person for many generations has been alive that remembered before they were there.
Right.
But they go away.
Yeah.
Right.
Largely.
So basically, you're talking about the impoundment right behind the
Yeah.
So that will look more similar to what it looks like, just upstream and just downstream. It will be a naturally flowing river. And we'll follow that similar channel. We'll have a much better sense once the hydrologic and hydraulic study is complete to really understand what that channel is going to look like. The naturally existing channel down there, we're just not quite sure what it's going to look like.
Are there other areas other than that one that we're expecting to be a lot?
We're looking at two areas potentially in this project, one of which is mostly in Hanson, the State Street Dam one.
Is that one?
Yeah, the one further downstream is shared between Hanover and Pembroke.
Yeah, exactly. You guys will just go down the State Street,
Yeah.
the State.
We would hope to be knowledgeable about the State Street project because it's a resource area that's in our jurisdiction.
Sure.
There is one other one I forgot. Setauket River in East Bridgewater. If people are familiar with here, Route 106 comes through, it's just a little way south of East Bridgewater Center. There is an intersection, it's Plymouth Street and Whitman Street. If you're going to Bridgewater, the way I usually go, you go right past it. The big old brick building, which is now storage, used to be the Carver Cotton Gin. On the left side, that was an impoundment until about 15 to 20 years ago. The dam, which was right for the old brick building there, was unsafe, so they gradually lowered it. And you can see now there is a meadow, looks like a floodplain, because kind of is, that very similar to the photos here, and also what you'd see in Kingston around the Jones River. The first thing that happens once the water goes away is meadows develop or are developed that serve as floodplains. So it's, instead of waving water, you see waving grass in the summer. So.
And that's something we'll do too, is bring people out to some of those sites, so you can really see what it might look like. But that wasn't a silly question because I got to see the next
Yeah.
one as well.
And sometimes people, depending on the particular situation, are quite fond of the impoundment that's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's,
A lot of recreation.
Exactly.
there will be discussion of that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Now, a State Street impoundment isn't much of a recreation area.
Right.
There's no good access for launching or recovering, or even a little kayak, and it's narrow, and it's, I don't know, the surface area is not as great as you might want for, let's say, a pleasure cruise.
Yeah, I mean, my best guess, and again, doing this outreach to really have a better understanding, is that concerns would be around the aesthetics of it, that the people living in that area.
Sure.
That view, that's again, another beautiful view. But it would be less about recreation and access than it would be about that.
I have a question.
Yes?
Your timeline suggests that the towns will be able to decide something, I'm not sure what, in early 2024. The fireworks cleanup project won't even touch the Indian Head River before 2025.
Right.
So all that sediment contamination behind the dams won't even be looked at before 2025 by the fireworks people. Your
It'll be
timeline
looked
is much too short,
So the fireworks people aren't involved in this piece of the project?
but they should be, because they own the sediment.
Well, that's what we're trying to identify with this next round of State of Blaine, trying to identify markers that would tie sediment to the fireworks site.
They've already done sampling which shows that all the way down to the crotch, there's contamination from the fireworks site.
Okay. It's my understanding that they haven't been able to tie it to the fireworks
Well,
site.
our feedback,
And not necessarily to the industry.
our
Well, it's
feedback,
mercury
I'm sorry.
contamination.
No,
Where
I
else is
hear
it
you.
gonna come from?
So I'm just saying, on paper, it hasn't been identified such that funding would be put aside from the fireworks site.
Oh, they're not talking about funding at all. That's why your timeline is probably too short. They don't, there's no indication that the people who own the fireworks site cleanup are gonna clean up the river.
Sure. But again, the early 2024 is to approve what the results of the feasibility study, and the sediment management plan will be a result of the study. In that plan will be who's responsible for it. If it turns out that it is a fireworks site, then the next part of the timeline would have to be adjusted to account for that.
So what kind of decision would you expect from the town?
It will be to move forward, to move on to the next, to design and permitting. Engineering, design, and permitting to go from 40% design to 90% design, and to start permitting, and move forward with that plan.
It may be,
And the timeline, kind of depending on what that plan
it may be that if any sort of approval is sought or looked for, it might be in principle. There are very early indications that the funding of the entire fireworks project might need more money than they have now.
Right.
But running out of money isn't a reason to ignore the rest of the cleanup that needs to be done. If there's work that needs to be done on or off-site, there may be resources looked for and even found beyond what we're aware of right now.
Right.
So I think we need to be optimistic and plan for good things, but as Dr. Skellinger says, there are solid data points in our hands right now that say to us, we are certain that there are things that need to be handled.
Sure.
And time will tell. It's kind of horrifying how long these things take, but the place has been, shall we say, under environmental assault for close to 100 years,
Yeah.
and it takes more than a few years to clean it up. But this is still very exciting in the long term,
Yeah.
and we look forward to whatever develops.
And I will also say that it's my understanding that the parties involved in the fireworks site are close to an agreement in terms of who is paying for what the allocation of funds will be. It's just my understanding from DEP. And they would not be responsible for the actual cleanup in these areas, but that funding for that level of cleanup in these two areas would come from that bucket. That's what I'm being told by DEP.
You need more information.
Yeah, we shall.
Okay, so tell me who I should be talking to, because
Well-
I'm getting from DEP.
Attorney General's office.
The Attorney General's office, yes.
Okay.
I have another question.
Sure.
Assuming this all works out and is done, it would be very beneficial to the town of Pembroke, because their cold water fishery is blocked by the Elm Street Dam, the Luddensport Dam. But Hanson's cold water fishery is still stuck with the Liberty Street Dam. And I don't hear anything proposed about that. Now, outside this building is a big pond, an impoundment from
90-something.
1690-something, that's blocking the fish from going up into the ponds that make up the cold water fishery in Hanson. And I don't hear anything proposed for that.
And I said, what was the name of that dam?
Well,
Liberty Street.
Yeah.
Liberty Street.
it's also known as the Thomas Mill Dam.
Straight across the street here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If it was daylight, we'd raise the curtain and you can see it. My understanding for the natural resource damages project, which
Right.
we're running out of time to discuss right now, but is there was a geographic limitation, and it wasn't clear to us whether the dam out here was outside that boundary or right at the boundary or just inside it. And Samantha Woods at North South River is aware of some of our thoughts about that.
Okay.
But there is a delineation of the area that this fund of which we are now speaking is allowed to cover. And to Dr. Schellinger's point, we just want to double or triple check to see whether this dam is inside or outside that area.
Yeah, I
And
definitely.
I think it would help you in your outreach to people in Hanson to be very, very clear about that. We still are not quite clear.
Now, are there issues with habitat? I mean, aside from the dam itself being an impoundment, are there any issues of contamination in
Not due to the fireworks.
Yeah, so that would be my guess, is that's
but-
why this money is specifically for offsite damages.
No,
From that.
my understanding is that it's for damages of any kind, of any environmental, any opportunities to improve ecological function in the watershed, whether it's caused by virus contamination or not, is eligible for consideration under this $6 million or whatever it is. It's not just mercury contamination, it's anything that would improve the habitat of the watershed.
Okay.
And that's kind of important to be able to tell, let's find out and be clear.
Yeah.
So, that's probably all the feedback we have time for tonight. I'm so sorry, but we have a hearing we need to conduct
Yeah,
for
sure.
others. But we look forward to, through you and through Matt and others, hearing how this goes. It's good to have this in hand, and if you'll be making any presentations to our historic people or want our help with that, Historical Board of Selectmen, let us know.
Well, thank you.
And it's delightful to meet you. We didn't mean to limit our time, it's just
No,
that
that was great.
we're,
Quite a bit of time.
yeah. And thank you for
And my
the,
email is on this sheet, if you guys have any direct questions. Dave said I get in touch with me. You said I get in touch with me.
I'll see if I can get some of those pictures for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you.
very good.
That's right.
We've started the communication.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. At this point, folks, our meeting, conservation meeting will revert to the agenda. We have a 7:45 intended schedule for notice of intent. We will now hear the reading of that notice.
Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022 at 7:45 p.m. in Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent for Jeffrey Manderville, PLR Built, LLC, represented by PNP Associates, 200 North Bedford Street, East Bridgewater, Mass. 02323, EP number SE75 there's one more numbers here. New hearing. Product on the project, a proposal to construct a single-family home, driveway, water service, overhead telephone, electric, and cable services. The applicant has also requested removal of 1,626 square feet of existing bordering vegetated wetlands and proposing 3,275 square feet of wetland application to compensate at 0 Whitman Street, map 109, plat 7B. The applicant is filing under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetlands Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, and Rules and Regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission, for comments, Chair.
Thank you. Hearing is open. The floor is yours, sir, for introductions and presentation.
All right, thank you. Just to start, my name is Josh Lee. I'm here with Jeffrey Lanigal, the applicant and owner of the property, and Jacob, the PNC as well. So, yeah, to start this off, so this parcel of land owned by Jeffrey, he's looking to put a development on here for a single-family house. As you can see on the plan, it's located on the northern side of Whitman Street, near the corner of Spring Street and Center and Town, give or take a few. As shown on the plan, in the blue is the existing distribution of the bordering vegetated wetlands, delineated by Steinberg Consulting. Basically, that wetlands is associated with a drainage ditch that runs under Whitman Street. There's a 12-inch RPC under that street, and from what we understand, it's been partially blocked, so there's a little bit of ponding backing up into the property. That explains the BBW area on the property. As you can see in the solid red line, that is 50-foot buffer, 50-foot no-touch buffer zone from the BBW. And then also there's the solid yellow line, the 100-foot buffer. So as you can see, the 100-foot buffer zone pretty much covers the entire property. And so for this proposed project, we are, like the chairman mentioned in the reading, we're proposing to remove about 1,626 square feet of wetlands, which is that drainage ditch, and we're going to relocate it to the eastern side of the property and reconnect it back to the DPW, towards the back of the property. And we've got total recreation area of 3275 square feet. Doing this would allow us to provide a new 50-foot, full 50-foot buffer zone from the new recreation area to the limit of work for this project. The dashed red line on the property would be the new 50-foot, and then the dashed yellow line would be the new 100-foot buffer on the property. As you can see, they're proposing a new single-family dwelling towards the front of the property. The way we're showing it right now, we comply with the zoning side setback, which is 25 feet, at 25.6 feet. So we're right there at the side setback with that configuration of the house with the proposed buffer zone. We've got, we did soil testing back in 2020, I believe, and in 2022. And we've got a proposed septic system towards the back of the property. The treatment tanks will replace the septic tank in this particular design. Then with pump chamber and the septic field out there. Because of the both the site constraints with the wetlands on the property and the high groundwater, we're forced to put a retaining wall on this side of the septic system, and then on this side towards the western property line with the abutter and his driveway, it's just going to be graded down with some boulders just at the bottom, just along the property line. We do have the area is shown for the full-size dimensional system. We do have a reserve area shown in the front, but we do have soil testing as well. summarize the proposal. So, single-family house in the center of the lot, proposed 24-foot wide driveway at the widest part of 12 to 15 feet street, with a new water service and overhead utilities connecting to the house. I think that pretty much summarizes the whole project. Do you have anything you want to add, John?
Back in '98, when I acquired this property, at that point, the cul-de-sac, the culvert that was allowing this property to, the water was shed right through, was all clogged up. It was all bunched up, so we ended up, I called the highway department to come down and clean it up. They actually did a great job. They were there within 2 days, and they cleaned it out. And at that point, it allowed the water to flow right through the property. And since then, we've been doing some minor cleaning of the very front of it, the culvert, to make sure it stayed clear. It's been doing, since the upkeeping has been going on, and that the property has been, limited to where the existing wetlands has been. So I just wanted to point out that if we maintain it, the culvert there, the property would be able to be maintained with the wetlands is existing. But another thing that I'd like to introduce Tim King. No, I'm sorry. John and Kevin Hanson. I'm sorry, I haven't had the privilege of meeting that one. And I met with them a couple of times already to go over what their concerns were. And with John and Kevin, and the first thing they mentioned was, is moving the wetlands close to the house, is it going to flood, make more water on their property?
If I could just interrupt procedurally here, what we do is, absolutely, we want to hear from everyone who has an interest in this. What we are doing at this point in the early is you're presenting information about the project to the commission. The commission and its staff may have questions and thoughts and comments and discussion, and everyone else will also have time to be heard, whether it's tonight or if it's continued or anything like that. But we need to look very hard at what's being proposed, what data has been gathered, and when the introductory stuff is set, I know I'm going to be interested in knowing if we have access to the wetland scientist report. You said I'm sure it's got a recent date on it, but Pinebrook Consulting did the wetland work. Whether we remember to ask for it or not, we're always interested in those reports for any project because it's informative. And what we'll give you a chance to either offer that or if there's something else. But again, didn't mean to interrupt, but procedurally, everyone else will have their turn. So.
I was just really anxious to make sure that the homeowners' questions,
and that's our job, to make sure they're heard. Sometimes applicants haven't already engaged with homeowners, and that's what these hearings are for. We want to hear from people. So what haven't we given you a chance to present yet? We've heard quite a lot.
I'd just like to add a couple of things.
Sure, please do.
Yeah. My name's Ed Jacobs, EMP. So on the east side of the property is an existing stone wall, and where we're intending to move the wetlands over to, we're staying about 5 feet away from the stone wall, so the stone wall will still be intact, and that would be a natural barrier for the wetlands. The edge of the wetlands will go 5 feet from that, so we don't disturb the stone wall. And the other thing is, when we first started looking at this project, we did meet with Mr. Skellinger, and we had a couple of different designs. One was this design, and then we had another design with a sidewood house, which was 40 by 24 over here. Again, meeting the side setback, but after we showed Mr. Skellinger the two plans, he thought that this would be the best way forward. And the reason that Mr. Landville spoke with the neighbors is obviously we're moving as Josh had mentioned, the solid red line, the 50-foot no touch now, and as we're moving the wetlands over to the east, the buffer moves over, and it now encroaches more onto the property owners of 329 and 339 Spring Street. Well, I should say 329 Spring Street. The buffer zones, important to note, do not change on 339 Spring Street. They, as you can see with the dotted red lines, they're really encroaching more on 329 and 700 Whitman Street.
So in other words, by relocating the wetland itself and any buffer zone measured beyond that, it will be further east than it is now.
Correct. Everything moves 50 feet, which is why I suggested to Mr. Landville to go meet with the neighbors, get, their concerns, and he has done so, and I'm sure we'll hear from the neighbors when it's their fortune to speak in the meeting. But I just thought, in the culvert, in case you can't see it on the plan, but this is the drainage ditch, goes into a pipe right here, and continues underground for about 100 feet down and off the property.
Yeah. What does the outfall look like on the other side of the street where the water goes? That's not shown on here.
No.
No. I've been there, and that was one of the first things I looked at when I acquired the property. And it's just abruptly ends.
Well, it ends in an opening of some sort. Is it onto a residential property, or what's there?
It looks like it's in a residential property.
There are houses on the south side of Whitman Street.
Yeah, it goes into, it looks like more wetlands, and I think there might be a river or something like that.
Yeah, it's a large parcel in there. It dumps into the wetlands, and then the wetlands go into the brook.
I'm actually very familiar with this area, and it's very flat. But the sense of flow is towards the south and then southwest, and there is a stream further south on other people's property that flows into what used to be called Cushing's Pond. It's actually tributary to Brett's Brook and Poor Meadow Brook. So that's where the water is trying to go. Gravity is pulling it that way. And whether it's right now or if the project goes forward, we just want to understand the neighborhood and any impacts. You're talking about some of the impacts, but there's things maybe on the other side of the street that we don't know if they might be impacted, but we'll see, right, in the course of the hearing.
One of the things I want to point out too is, on the existing wetlands that we have right now, there is an area that gets stagnant water, which is water just sits there and it's still evaporates and all that. The new design will actually allow it to flow right through, just like the long spring piles.
Well, wetlands that are existing as we walk around the landscape and see them now are performing functions whether we think they are or aren't. And whether they're moving or not moving, those functions are real, and impacting them by moving them or filling them or doing other things, that's what the Wetlands Protection Act is all about, and that's what we're all about too.
Now, I was on the site today, and I took some pictures. I don't know if you want to view those.
Sure. Before we get to that, I don't want to be the only commissioner to say anything. Anything else? Any questions on people's lips at this point? Mr. Heel.
The question for the commission, how common is it to move wetlands? I mean, to me, it sounds kind of outrageous almost.
Well, the moving them isn't the right word. Filling and replicating is the word. And I hope that the applicant would perhaps maybe adopt that terminology. It says proposed wetland removal area. We'd like to know what you mean by remove, either fill with gravel or dig out what's there and put something else there. We don't know what that means, because removing a wetland, as Mr. Heel says, it's not something we commonly hear. It's usually a void or something. But there are other ways to deal with it. We have had projects that have impacted wetlands before, and there have been either replications or other things done. There was one in your neighborhood further up the street towards Whitman where some replication is going on right now. I think it's a mitigation area is being created, which interesting to see it right next to the street. But what we don't know is the details of your plan.
The last page does show a replication plan.
Okay.
And it has Brooks' report on it.
Oh, good. So it's what, sheet 404 or?
So this is sheet 404, and it basically simplifies the plan, there's less notes, and it basically just specifies.
Strict weather application.
Okay, yeah, there's the terms. We hadn't got to that page.
So the first thing on your replication notes is to refer to the wetland replication and replacement plan prepared by Pinebrook. Is that what's copied basically here below, or is that a separate document?
The separate document is a portion of it that was specifically for the application.
So what's below here is from that, but it's not the entirety thereof?
Yes, and the entirety is
It's also-
part of our calculation.
Oh, and there's another part of the package too?
Route 46.
Look at mine. It should be, there it is.
Okay, good. So what we were asking about is here in our hands,
Yeah.
thank you. So the date of her delineation was August 13th, 2018? Or that's the date in this report?
Looks like the delineation was July 5th of 2018.
Yeah. I'll ask Dr. Stellinger, our agent, is this something that's still covered by the tolling period as far as delineation currency? 3 years is a number we know when thinking about.
Delineation is good for 3 years. I don't know that it was tolled. I don't know that that was part of the tolling. That the state mandate.
Okay, so what we have here, we have a one-page report describing the wetland delineation and some other information, and then attached to it is a several pages of wetland replication / replacement plan. And you haven't spoken about it in detail, but we could read it, maybe not speed read it tonight, but my sense, I could be wrong, and I invite our staff or others, my sense is that there's enough here, and it's a little bit of an unusual request. We might need more than tonight to look at it, but any other questions? I mean, we now know, we now understand the things we have in our laps.
Is there anything on the property currently, or is it completely undeveloped?
I know my own sense from having lived in the town all my life, it looks like it's very, very typical of southeast Massachusetts, which is a flat, a farmer would call it poorly drained, and that's what that was. There were farms that had modest drainage ditches put in it so that it would be less wet for his cows or his hay cutting or anything like that. Very, very common. However, the farming days were over about 100 years ago, and so trees and other things to come in, it's probably Red Maple City right now. But that doesn't mean it's not functioning as in some ecologically useful way. So that's the information before us. I'm going to suggest that this is probably a good time with everyone here to see if any neighbors or abutters do have input or questions or comments one way or another, and we'll make sure we get your name and everything on the record so that we're fair. Sir, go ahead.
My name is John Nolan. I'm here with Stephanie Davis from 339 Spring Street.
339. Please approach and talk about whatever you think is important.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jeff mentioned that he did clean out that
culvert
pipe we covered, and I wouldn't give it 8+ was. I mean, the water level did decrease some, but there's still a major problem with water, not only on all this area here. Someone said they took pictures of those up here tonight as well. So we have water issues with 339. We have it on our north side, we have it on the back, and we also have it on the left side. So when I hear a proposal come in that they're taking 600 square feet of wetlands and pretty much pushing it closer to the property that we know, and that raises a level of concern. We certainly don't want to be inundated with, I'm not going to call it his water, but really what I'm here for is just an assurance from you people that the property at 339 is not going to be taking on excess water from this proposed project. Certainly something that we can't handle. But by the way, he's got a couple of replication areas in here, and I'm not 100% familiar with them. But how do we know if we're going over 1,600 square feet of wetlands, and basically it's a stream, and we're altering the course of it, then how do we know that's going to be absorbed by these wetland replication areas? I mean, is there a mathematical formula that says 1,600? I mean, that may be the engineers.
Right.
How do you know that the capacity is there?
Well, I'll leave that to Josh, but it has more to do with the contours, which I think Josh can explain.
And to that point, I'm looking on the map here for contours besides the subject property. I don't see any contours that, and maybe it's a matter of, courtesy to neighbors not to have gone there.
Right.
I don't see any indication of how the contours behave over at 329 Spring Street or 339 Spring Street or 700 Whitman Street. I don't know what the levels are.
It appears to go downhill, but there's nothing there to show.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little.
Sure.
We can take more shots out there, but 339 is higher because there's a raised septic system in the backyard.
And that brings up another issue I wanted to bring up as well.
But by the way, raised septic systems tell us a lot about the soil in the area, and just putting it on the table.
Right, and 329 is, as you said, a flat area. I didn't take any shots over there, I can, but I would say it's about the same elevation.
Sure. Oops. We're hearing
339?
329.
Same elevation as what?
Well, I think as where the stone wall is.
Okay, yeah, there's currently standing water there
Right, it was there today, yeah.
Well, I guess if we go back to where I left off.
Sure, please do. I'm sorry.
I'm not an engineer, but I'm not sure, one way or the other, whether this new, replication area is adequately big enough to hold the capacity of water that they're putting down there. And I say this only because the other day I went out there with a shovel to put 3 or 4 holes all around this area. I came back the next day, and it had been raining, and that water was up to about an inch and below. So, if the plan is to dig, how deep do you have to dig this area?
I would think what we talked about is what is the distance from the surface of the ground to the top of the water table in these places, and it might not be a big distance from what we're hearing.
Well,
Which means, and again, which means that we're not really adding 1,600 into 3,000, because when you dig a hole, water level is going to come up and fill.
We really are. I was out there today and I saw the holes that you dug, and they're in the wetlands.
Sure.
So when you dig in the wetlands, they're wetlands because the water is right at the surface. That's what causes the wetlands, and that's what causes the wetlands to grow.
A wetland is something which is saturated at least 6 months of the year, not necessarily the whole year.
Right. But after the last couple of days, I mean,
I just, when I look up the definition of...
Let me just clarify what Mr. Jacobs said.
Yeah.
He went out there and looked at the holes you dug, and they were in the wetland. The wetland is on Mr. Landerville's property, right?
right.
So why were you digging holes in the wetland?
Number one, I dug holes all around the area, and I wasn't 100% sure whether I was in the wetlands. Actually, what he has designated as wetlands right here, it's actually a stream. So, no, I could not go in and dig a hole in the stream. That's about 2 feet deep. But I dug a hole here, up here, just to see myself what type of water table we're talking about. And it just makes sense to me that if I dig a big hole, the water's going to come up. And the new water that we're pushing down there is going to come over, and it's going to run down the north side of the 399 property, 339 property, and it's going to run this way. The other question I had here too was, this area between, this brown, the brown again is,
That looks like an erosion control.
yeah, that's an erosion
Look,
control.
think of it as hay bales.
And this is pretty much the boundary line, this is
Yeah.
pretty much the wall.
Yeah.
This area here is underwater as well. Now, this area, and I believe, would like to drain this way. Now, is that water going to be able to drain this way, or is it going to be forcing a Kevin's yard when this project is finished? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With this area right in here. My yard is way up here, and I have a septic system, which is probably within 20 feet of the new proposed retention area.
Well, nothing,
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, nothing's really changing up in that area.
When we,
Well, let me just point it out.
Right, which is...
Yes, because your backyard, your side yard is here, just want to make sure everybody can see it. And this is your backyard,
Yeah,
your septic system is right in here.
yeah, that's right, yeah,
Right.
right in here.
But this line right here is not changing. We're not doing anything with this. This wetlands is changing. It's not changing.
So I have a
What we're
septic
doing is-
system, after this project is complete, if you let me finish, I've got a septic system that's within 25 feet of the wetland retention area.
Well,
Now, my question would
You
be,
do now, though. It's not changing.
my question is, if something happens to my septic system, am I now out of compliance? Do I have to move it?
Well,
It would be suggested that I move it.
let me just say this, again, we have a certain amount of jurisdiction, and what we're trying to do is understand, this might call for a site visit, in my opinion, because because of information that's shown here and information that's not shown here, and because of the nearness of all the other properties, and there's many factors that might call for that. We have a little saying around here, which is that water and gravity will always do what they've always done. They'll always continue to do it, with maybe not respecting property lines, or all they know is, like, I'm a water molecule, gravity's pulling me this way, or it's not. And these things, we can manipulate them somewhat, but when you've got a project like this, the amount of engineering that's being proposed is pretty large compared to the size of the property. And that means the neighbors are very close, as the neighbors know.
Phil?
Yes.
I'd like to hear from this gentleman down here before we go too far.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to speak.
I'm sorry for overlooking, but please identify yourself and speak.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Kevin Johnson. I live at 329 Spring Street.
Okay.
That's this property here. So,
Yes.
the water table is already low. Everybody knows that this area is already low.
You mean the topography is low?
Correct. So, I currently already have standing water right now. If I went to my house right now and took photos, there would be standing water. So the problem with, he has a raised septic system in order to deal with the current water that is already there. What's being proposed here is that this is also built up, correct, with a stone wall.
It shows.
This is going to be raised, which is going to divert all the water to the low-lying area, right, which is my house. Would you agree with that?
The lowest point here is the culvert under the road.
Yes.
And that was one reason I'm interested in what's on the other side of the road, because impacts don't stop just because there's a road.
that's at elevation 87. And where John's property, at the top of it,
Where am I at?
this,
Oh, that's 89
this right
there.
here.
That's 88.
Was 87, and this right here was 89. Based on the contours that's written down.
Yeah.
Not much of a...
So I'm sorry, keep going, Mr. Johnson.
All right, so the other issue with me is that, obviously, this dashed red line is going to directly change this area. I don't know what the square footage is there, and this yellow area will also change on my property, which doesn't benefit me in any way, shape, or form.
What it does is it changes the boundaries where we have or don't have jurisdiction.
Correct.
Because
Right.
within 50 or 100 feet of a wetland,
Right.
by state law is, and that's the line that's proposed to move.
I purchased this lot as is, bought
Sure.
this house, whatever, 6 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So, to be able to put a house in here, that's going to directly affect my lot and land.
Yeah.
And I assume, I don't know, I know, I talked to Jeff, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I assume he's going to buy this house, he has this lot, he's going to build it, and he's going to sell it. So then I don't have a dog in the race when something comes up And who's to say, obviously this summer it perked. Yeah, it's the driest summer we've ever had. I've had water in this till June. I've had water in the backyard till June before it's dried up. Okay? So who's to say, once he builds this house and sells it in the middle of the summer, that come the next spring, I don't have 2 feet of water in my basement.
Well, that's where, having...
If you dig
Well,
right
let him
here,
finish.
right now, 2 inches underneath there, I can put a shovel full of dirt in my backyard right now and it's gonna fill up with water.
Yeah,
If it
and
isn't-
by the way-
If I don't shovel up the water.
By the way, wetland scientists do that all the time as part of their job to
Okay.
analyze, and we...
And I don't mean to get hot and bothered.
No, but
I'm trying to protect my own.
2 people on this side of the table are wetland scientists that have dug holes for
Correct.
exactly that purpose in other towns at other times
Correct.
in order to see whether water does or doesn't appear. So we're familiar with the scenario you're describing,
Okay.
but this is our first real bite at this particular property.
No, I know. So, I'm just trying to talk to you guys and,
We're
you know,
listening.
protect my investment potentially. And, I mean, I'm 33 years old. This is a buildable area potentially, obviously it is, because he's trying to build here.
Well, it depends on what you get when you dig a hole on your property.
Correct, so I can wait till June 2038 and maybe I can build right there, right?
Well, it depends on what the soil conditions are, whether
I
we...
understand.
We know.
I'm saying that, I don't want to be red, I don't want that to be a dark red line
Yeah.
and be blocked off of being able to access my own land.
Yeah, I think there's
Down the
2
road.
kinds of impacts that can happen. One is an actual physical impact, and one is a regulatory impact.
Right.
And the moving of a line is a regulatory impact. It just is. Again, because the lots aren't very big and they're all close. So we hear that.
It's gonna move that.
We hear that.
50 feet into your lot.
Correct.
Yeah, we understand that.
Oh, and one other thing I'll say about moving lines. Looking ahead, let's hypothetically say things go forward and the house gets built and everything. The new 50-foot no-touch zone is still very close to the house. That's going to be a very small yard. And one of the things that we run up against quite often as a commission is people who build houses and have type things like future owners sometimes aren't quite up to snuff on wetlands laws, and you go by there one day and suddenly there's a swimming pool in the buffer zone that should have been gone through here. And people may have aspirations about the use and enjoyment of property that become regulatory things to be dealt with. So we know that in eastern Massachusetts, these things happen all the time, but if we can anticipate and make people's lives easier to keep in line with rules and regulations, we just think about those things. So, but
I mean, I don't have to offset this way, but this proposed area is essentially
yeah, that's a place that
similar size as that area, would you agree?
yeah. What's happened is an area that's under the regulation of that's not touchable and usable would be made touchable and usable by taking another area that's right now touchable and making that not touchable and usable.
His concern is he's now gonna make his property not usable by making one property more usable. If he wants to build a shed right here today, we don't have jurisdiction.
Right.
After this work is done, we have jurisdiction, we can say no shed.
That seems to be what's being proposed. Who else have I not given a chance to speak right now? Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please go ahead if you have something.
I just had a question.
Please, your name.
Stephanie
Okay.
Johnson.
Great.
From 399. So we've actually gone back and forth about regrading the property to like bring the water table up because we can't use our backyard 6 months out of the year. So if we ever wanted to do that, make our backyard more usable, we're not gonna be able to once we move that.
You won't be able to get into that line.
Right.
And actually, before you do anything, even without this project, if things are as close as it sounds like, it would be wise to have a wetland scientist look at your backyard now.
Correct.
Because who knows, because there's things not shown. There's wetlands north of this property. I don't know where the boundaries go. You may be close to the edge as it is.
This is, I have a picture right here from this time of year,
Sure.
3 years ago. We have 6 to 8 inches of water from,
Almost my back door, all
Yeah.
the way to that property.
Right, because again, wetlands are shown further north than the subject property. We don't know, except from things what you're saying or what we'd see from the site visit, what else is out there, and there are considerations, yeah.
Right, so it just feels like he wants to come in and take away that part of our property, like, but if you were to walk up to his property and say, you know what, I'm gonna build here, can I take this much of your property, and it's just mine now, you can't use it? That doesn't seem fair.
Nobody's gonna do that.
You know, it just seems really unfair for us. We bought the property 5 years ago with the intention of living there forever. Now we're not able to do anything on our property.
Well, again, the proposed relocation of the no disturb zones, the buffer zones is right, and we see you're in that area. Any other questions, other folks? Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Davis, 330 down Spring Street.
Sure.
I'm just curious, if you're talking about moving these, or relocating them, which terminology was. But what happens, we heard that you're building this house to sell. Now what happens, who's going to maintain this once you've sold the house, and as you said, people possibly wanting to put in a pool? I'm talking about the property itself. When you move this over, now things start growing, filling in, sediment, things like that. Now we've got more water closer to our home. I mean, I'm just curious, is there someone that maintains that drain to make sure it's flowing across the street?
People who own property are responsible for maintaining the property in terms of our regulations. If someone sells it, the new person is responsible for it. One hopes that the first person tells the second person what the issues are, and so on and so forth. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. I'm sensing a couple of things here. One is there's a lot of things to look at here, the wetland information from Pine Brook and other details. And I'll see if our agent has comments here too. I wonder if this calls for a site visit. Would you think that would make sense? You've been there, but...
I think it'd be good for the commissioners to see the site. I think based on what we're hearing from the neighbors, it might be a good idea to have it redelineated. If there's water on the other side of the wall, then the wetland line running down the ditch isn't quite correct, is it?
Well, isn't the wetlands delineation 4 years old and the limitations are 3?
That's a concern. The other thing is, and this is to your point, Dr. Scalzi makes a very good point, if the wetland delineation was redone, it could be useful not only by being updated, but with the understanding of neighbors. Perhaps if there are lines to be marked that are a little bit off the subject property, if it was okay to do that, it would inform all of us more of what the situation is. Those of us who do wetland delineation, and I do it sometimes, find that to properly inform the project proponent engineer, sometimes investigation beyond the property boundary is very, very important.
I think also if you read Brooks'
the report,
what you'll see is that she did the delineation just by looking at the vegetation. It sounds like
she should have been doing
She should have done some
soil
evaluation.
Right.
Some
The thing about soils is, even if all the vegetation is mowed off a site, you say, well, now you don't know. Oh, yes, the soil knows, because there are charts and geological facts that have been established over the decades that the water doesn't just go away. It goes into the soil and it does things. It sometimes dissolves minerals out of the soil, and there's a little saying that soil scientists say when thinking about developing. One is brown and yellow. In other words, if it's brown up above and yellow underneath, brown and yellow, happy fellow. I mean, it typically upland soils like it, but black and gray stay away. Black usually indicates something like this mucky, and gray is everything's been leached out. There's no iron left, no manganese, and the color is gone. And those sorts of things are very informative. We would like to perhaps know a little more about that. It's just useful.
I just want to say this to the commissioners. This site is probably buildable. it may not be buildable the way it's designed.
Mhm.
It may not be a good idea to have a house facing the street. It may be necessary
Reorient.
long ways.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think that we're in a position to say you cannot build this site.
Right,
So some other design work needs to be done.
and if there are changes to designs, it's time to do it as well, still all on paper, as opposed to machines.
I understand about us not being happy
Right.
about having the jurisdictional area pushed into the yard, whereas it was not
Right.
before.
So-
But a new wetlands delineation would tell you whether it was that way anyhow.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, but basically, we just
Exactly.
can't handle any more water.
Yeah.
But I understand you being unhappy with going further into your yard than you
Right.
yeah,
realize.
the ultimate indication of wetland status is standing water. Sometimes it's below the surface, you don't see it, but digging a hole will tell you that. And so it's part of the standard thorough delineation.
Yes, can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
We did have another design
Mhm.
with the house turned sideways.
Mhm.
It's a narrower house, of course,
Mhm.
but to stay away from the existing 50-foot no-touch, which is here,
Yes.
and the 25-foot yard side setback, which is a large setback for a town.
But it's what the bylaw is.
Yeah, right, usually at 10 or 15. But to do that, I believe we can, the width of the house would have to be about 17 feet. So
Mhm.
we did a design where there would be buffer zone, 50-foot buffer zone encroachment of 7 feet, so that we could get a 24-foot wide house in there. So we had a 24 by 40-foot house,
Sure.
40 foot going back and 24-foot wide.
Mhm.
And it was a 7-foot buffer zone encroachment, 50-foot buffer zone encroachment. So when we heard of what I heard from the previous meeting was that there's mitigation allowed even in other parts of town as long as it's in watershed, and it's certainly something we'd entertain.
Right, what we want to do is see minimal impact on a site. The three levels of effort to prevent issues is, one is you avoid working the no-touch zone. Secondly, you minimize it.
Right.
And the third thing is mitigate. So we're talking all three things here. The first design had less, or it minimized the encroachment into the buffer zone. This seems like,
Well, only by moving it.
yeah,
It only minimized it by moving it.
okay.
The question.
Sure, please.
Just to rehash one thing that I had mentioned, with this replication zone, I mean, how do we know that this new area is going to have the capacity to handle this water and additional waters? And what happens when it reaches capacity? How deep will this area be?
One thing we don't see in this is any numbers. We don't know. We don't know.
When I look up the definition of wetland replication, it says to create a wetland where the wetland site didn't exist. Now, I don't know if this quite lives, if that's the absolute definition, I don't know if this quite lives up to it, only in the fact that we're kind of condensing wetlands here, and that's my concern. Again, if we go out there and we dig 9 feet deep and 1,600 square feet, and you come up a week later, you're going to have a little pond there, because that's where the water level is on this land.
Yeah. Well, a suggestion was made to redo the delineation, and that kind of makes sense. And it makes sense legally as well as discussion-wise. I think that it would make sense to do that again, and to also schedule a site visit. And I'm missing something. What else? Oh, continuing the hearing.
Yeah. So if I could suggest, would we get permission from the neighbors for the botanist to go onto your property if the wetlands bends around that way?
In other words, document what exists there now already.
What would be the purpose of that?
To show what, if the buffer zone is already on your property, then we would know that. Right now, we're just kind of going by.
I'm concerned about more being pushed.
Right, but what you don't know is what you have already. This shows, this takes into account what exists on the subject property. It doesn't give us any information of what might already be on a neighbor's property. So there may be wetland limitations already on the other properties.
And I'm not saying I want to do that, I'm just saying I need to tell my botanist that's going to go out there what she has the right to do. If I'm getting a sense on the board that they may want to know that, but I just can't go out and tell my botanist to go on your property. That's all I'm saying.
Right, it's your property.
Then we can't.
You get to decide who goes on it.
Do you have a problem with that, Charlie? With the buffer?
Yeah, I don't want anything.
Yeah, okay.
No, we're not.
I'm not sure why it matters, we're not trying to build.
No, no.
You gotta get done, we wanna make sure it's done so it doesn't affect us. I mean, he's not gonna be there, so it's, nothing against the developer, and we just wanna make sure that we don't get excess water
Yeah.
coming to our...
I also would think, to the extent you're able to, we'd like to know a little bit more about the areas to the north. I don't know how large the or even who owns the the Danielle Collins,
Right.
736 Whitman Street. The property seems to go back and behind it. We don't know how far that went. We don't know, shall we say, the catchment area for the moisture that's coming this way. How big an area is it draining? We don't know. And there may be some sort of professional commentary on that would be good.
Okay.
And lastly, what's on the south side of Whitman Street?
Yeah.
There's some kind of description of the outfall.
Yeah, and how far...
Maybe the highway department could tell you more, but you know where the pipe is, you can look and see and at least describe it.
Yeah, take some pictures.
Uh,
I won't be able to get your topo off the property, it sounds like, to the east.
Well, at least some sort of description, but, did I see a hand again?
hand raised up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go out this one.
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
we understand.
Yeah.
That's why we ask.
Yep.
So it's good to be clear.
With all concern, I'm very willing to, back off on, relocating the wetlands, and putting the motion in to go ahead and redesigning redesigning, of course, this is after we get the new delineation.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, no matter what you do.
So we won't do the replication close to the yard, and we'll go ahead and, put a motion into, to go either with, try to do the variance, to keep it out of the existing 50-foot buffer zone, or, if it's or go into the 50-foot buffer zone to establish, to eliminate the neighbor's concerns.
So, it sounds like there's a willingness to be flexible on the applicant's side.
Yes.
It may be premature to schedule a site visit, I don't know. I want to know what the board thinks about that. It may or it may not be premature at all. How curious are we to have a look at this site, or do we wait for more information to come forward?
I'm curious about it right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. With the neighbors' concerns.
Well, we're in the time of year with the shortest amount of daylight.
I know.
Who's your botanist?
Brook, still Brook, right?
Stillbrook?
Yes.
You're still going to use Brook, right? Yeah.
It might be good to do a site walk with the botanist present.
Sure.
Sort of co-schedule a return visit by her to the site with us visiting the site. And maybe she want to be there a few hours before, I don't know. It's up to you and her. What's not only short days, but also some busy days in between our
holidays.
With work schedules and other things, who could be available within the next week or so?
I'll make a point of it.
Don't look at me, it's dark by the time I'm home.
I'm sorry?
So don't look at me, it's dark by the time I get home.
Yeah, you're working with Ed.
I mean, I'm thinking when you plan it, if I'm free, but I am free this upcoming Monday. And, they're on time. I have days off, but I work 9 to 5 on a regular basis. if I can adjust my schedule based on what the three of you come up with, I may join.
I could do Monday.
But don't make the plan around it.
Well, I wonder if Monday the 19th, or actually Monday the 12th, that's the next Monday, isn't it?
I won't be available as well.
You would not? Monday the 19th?
But you could do the 12th and Josh could go in my stead, that's fine.
Our agent doesn't have very many hours to work per week, at least this year. I wonder if there's anything in the schedule that would interfere with a couple hours in the field on Monday the 12th.
Whenever
Well,
I'll be available.
why don't we schedule, and the applicant himself would like to probably check his schedule, but
I'll make myself available for the board.
what if we said Monday the 12th at 10 a.m. on the site? I'm looking at
Fire right now.
Works for me.
at least Mr. Mansfield,
here.
Boston Business One.
We'll have to check with clerk, of course.
Yeah. We only have a few hours of office time available for communication. If that's too aggressive, maybe we should say the 19th to allow for more planning.
Yeah,
Coordination.
that might be better.
Well, we've taken a lot of time. We're sorry we started a few minutes late here. What we should do is, I think, continue the meeting, the hearing to a date and time certain. We could continue to our next meeting and then see what we have or don't have. That's the most responsive thing we could do, and if we needed to continue, we could. But what's your pleasure?
Well, I'm just thinking, your next meeting's the 21st.
Yeah.
We're gonna walk it on the 19th.
Yeah.
It's really not gonna give us time, whatever we come up with, so I would say it would be the meeting after that.
I saw a January schedule here when it first came in, or at least a calendar.
Yeah, then,
And January has,
we haven't
When-
done the dates yet, but we could do,
that is next year, right? The 4th and the 18th, we have meetings, we can have then. Let me find it on here. Yeah, our January meetings would be the 4th and the 18th.
Okay, we could get, depending on what we discuss on the 19th, I could have plans turned around by the 4th.
Okay. Is there anything on that docket yet?
no, not yet.
Okay.
Just 7?
We could say 7 p.m. on the 4th.
Perfect.
Chair would entertain a motion to continue this hearing to our meeting of January 4th at 7 p.m. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That gives us time, and we will, if we go there on December 19th at 10 a.m., that'll help us. If we have more than 2, we can post it as a meeting, but
Should I call once I speak with clerk? Should I just
the office, call the office.
Okay. So Frank, I'll give you a call after.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate
We don't want it.
Spring Street.
I knew it.
And this is what's going to happen, so
So these plans.
So if they
I'll say
get
this
back
because on the
a
record,
copy of
thank you very
I'll
much
make more-
for all
I'm guessing
your
I'll have to make more.
efforts.
No,
We'll be in
no
touch.
problem. You know, I did go to the homeowners before, and I said, if you guys are this, concerned about it, we could explain that, how you didn't know if the board will accept this idea, but if you guys are this concerned about it, I'll pull this off the table.
We will see, because more information will help us all be sure of what makes sense or otherwise, and we want to have everyone's interests at
It
heart.
might be pushing more wetlands onto more buffer zone onto that property, but it might be that it was already there.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to let them.
Could be, yes, it could be.
And
And so the delineations tools, it has to be.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think there's a way, as Mr. Skellinger said, I think there's a way, maybe we can design this with little or no impact.
But I'll say for the record for our meeting here, this commission, in this town, we see more and more projects come forward that are on what we call marginal areas. They're not just nice, dry, gravelly hills. They're very difficult. And what we don't want to do is make decisions that would be precedents for problems on the next 10 decisions. We want to look ahead as well as the merits of each case, but we want to be fair. Thank you.
I totally get
One
it.
of the things that, in 2018, when I acquired the property, I ended up, have a highway department, immediately go in there within like a couple of weeks.
Sure.
And they cleaned out the culvert. At that time, before that, for years, the water was backing up onto the property. And you could actually really see levels of the trees.
It happens.
You know what I mean? I'm not sure what does to the soil at that point,
It has to be decades before the soil starts to show things.
Yeah.
It also shows things that have been there for decades and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm just pointing that out, we'll see when we do the walkthrough.
Yeah, it's, the soil and the other conditions will be better understood when we do a few more things. So, again, we appreciate it.
One thing I just want a clarification on. So now the meeting is going to be the 19th. If we can get Brooke out there ahead of that to redo it.
What do you mean, our sidewalk will be on the 19th?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the sidewalk will be on the 19th. Should we try to get Brooke to redelineate it before then?
It's your call, but it can only help. It couldn't hurt, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe not the whole delineation, but the critical portion.
The absolute on-site conditions are the most critical.
Yep.
Any attention that is given that before the 19th, fresh flags?
Yes.
I mean, this, and with this in hand, and if there's even maybe a new drawing by then, I don't know. I don't know how quickly you can turn around the paper record.
Well, we had a concept, I don't want to show it now because, the abutters have left, but
Sure.
We did have a concept like I explained, so I could send that.
Anything you want to provide, either ahead of or on the 19th would help, and nothing wrong with that. We like that thought.
Okay.
So to be transparent, would the board consider us going into the put no touch zone? Or should it be best for me to?
Well, you're already proposing that. I mean, you're already talking about going into it by moving it.
Right. Moving it, but without moving it.
The less touching and moving, the better. That's a principle way beyond us. I mean, that's the universal principle. So anything that reduces what's been proposed already, it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
But then you're talking about tipping that house
Yes.
sideways?
Yes.
But then that is building within the 50-foot buffer still, or is it?
No.
It's right along the existing?
It would be building
Close.
7 feet inside the buffer, correct?
Well, as we said before, the previous plan anticipated already some intrusion.
Yes.
And
With mitigation. There would be mitigation, there would be need for mitigation no matter what we do unless we build a 17-foot White House.
let's take a look, and that's the best we can do.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, what's next on our agenda? Sorry, folks. The minutes.
What'd you say?
Nothing. The minutes from the meeting of November 16th are before us. 2 pages.
Great.
I'm looking at 16 and,
One thing I noticed is I'm pretty sure I abstained on the minutes of November 2nd.
So we're looking at the minutes approval instead of 500, it's 401.
Here, the second of November is.
Oh, maybe it was 30.
00, because I was attending another meeting.
I don't know when it...
Well, actually, maybe the attendance isn't quite right. The November 16th, it says you were here.
November 16th we were here, but we did not vote on the
The minutes
minutes
is November 2nd. It's the only.
I'm reading 2 things. I'm reading who was here, because you're saying you weren't.
No, we said...
We were there, but we were not here the 2nd of November.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So, motion to approve the November 2nd minutes, as reported in the November 16th, should be 302.
Correct.
302, because you were here on the 16th. You just simply abstained from the meeting, from the vote. Any other thoughts or questions?
You were saying, you were here.
The chair is happy to hear any motions further at this point.
I move we vote to approve the meeting minutes from the 16th with the change to the vote regarding the meeting. Second.
I've heard a motion, a second. And with that piece of information, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved with that change. Moving along. That, we did that, we did that, we did that. We have some discussions here and some paperwork in our laps. The American Chestnut Foundation, they call it a germplasm agreement. In order to work with the family on Main Street who, as part of their compliance, is funding some tree purchasing. Tree purchasing in the form of the American Chestnuts requires to join the American Chestnut Foundation. The American Chestnut Foundation has this terminology, but the bottom line is $300 will gain us access within the next few months to chestnuts that we can plant where we so choose, and that will help the previous project that is funding this. In order to move ahead with this, I assume it's a matter of simply approving us joining the American Chestnut Foundation on their terms. There's the agreement.
Are they going to be planting trees? Is that?
When you say they,
Ship us seeds.
we would be getting seeds.
Yeah, we got a plant.
We're getting seeds for these very special, new, disease-resistant chestnuts.
Okay.
Very valuable environmental feature. Where they're planted is our call. We would need to eventually fill this out and say where the trees will be planted. It wouldn't be planted at our shipping address. Our shipping address is probably right here at the town hall. I think it would make sense to choose land that Conservation Commission controls
Probably.
and to make be able to fill this out in a way that would satisfy the American Chestnut Foundation. They aren't just a seed company. They are an advocate for restoring this tree to the new American landscape. I don't know that I'm prepared tonight to put down an address where the trees will be planted. We just need to work this out. Lon, you got this information from them?
Yeah, I printed it.
And I know I haven't read the whole thing.
The expiration date of 11/22, 23, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a year from now. The reasons for this agreement, there's about 25 lines, and then there's about 80 lines of the terms of the agreement. I'm thinking we kick the signature of this and the approval of this down to the next meeting.
Yep.
So let's read this. And actually, I think it's very interesting reading. The American chestnut was one of the most significant trees on the continent until the disease took it out. But we wouldn't be getting seeds till March anyway, so we're not going to delay the project. So let's all look this over and put it on the agenda for our next meeting. Okay? Wildlands Trust Stewardship Endowment Fee for Hanson. This is kind of an important thing. The very good news, based on a written communication we have from the Wildlands Trust, and I'm going to accept a copy from my right-hand person here. The sleeper property conservation restriction has been approved by the State Department of Conservation Resources. No, the State Department of Conservation Services. part of that agreement is that the Wildlands Trust would, every single year going forward, visit the site and write a report and make sure that everything is going fine. However, it costs money to pay the people who do that. Stewardship endowment fee for this year is $11,070.38. And they have a copy of the endowment worksheet here. It describes everything they would do and how they got to that number. I don't see a due date on that. I think this gives me pause to say, conservation restrictions are great things, but when they come with a monitoring requirement, because this was partly state funded, the state requires this, that $200,000 grant came with this string attached. We need to be good stewards of town funds and say,
Can you pose a question?
yeah, I'm glad we don't have 10 of these things in front of us right now. This is the fourth.
My question being, it's $11,000, that's not every year, so.
No.
Is it like a perpetual thing that we're paying up front for this?
Well, all these
Done.
pieces of paper explain it, and let's see. Okay,
The way
very quickly find
the way that it reads to me is that it's a one-time payment into their endowment.
Right, the endowment thing.
They have a estimated percentage of it.
I have less problem with that, than expecting money,
They assume that-
doing what they've asked.
They assume that they will earn this much over the next 20 years, and interest will cost them this much of that, and this is what we need to pay to make it all work out.
Right, so that over time, everyone's being fairly treated, and the work gets done. Yeah, they have made an informed calculation of the costs incurred, et cetera.
I have a concern separate from the $11,000,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the sheet they gave us for the selectmen to sign, with the selectmen from April of 2022, and not the current selectmen. No,
Now, when you say sheet they're signing, are we talking about statement of grant or something else?
we can now begin obtaining signatures on the document, beginning with the select board. The page they gave us for the select board to sign.
Oh, in other words, they have the wrong names.
There are people on it.
Okay. We'll have to fix that. We'll have to fix that.
Yeah.
But this project's gone on so long, no wonder there's been changes. But good catch.
Just before people start signing things incorrectly.
Well, since we're not the selectmen, we don't get to sign it anyway. However, we have an obligation to tell the selectmen where we think the $11,000 should come from.
Good question.
If we were smarter,
It's a real shame we spent a bunch of money at town meeting.
well, 3.5 years ago, when the Sleeper project started, we had no idea that it wasn't one parcel, that the title was clouded, that it would take 3.5 years, or that the CR would cost this much. We would have done some different math 3.5 years ago if we knew that. The project budget would have been expanded. But here we are. Here is a possibility. The Springtown meeting is about, 5.5 months away? Yeah, 4.5. I wonder if we could find out whether Community Preservation Act could fund this sort of a bill. It's for open space protection. This is, compared to other requests of community preservation, this is fairly small. That is a thought, so as to not take more than a quarter of our entire conservation fund and spend it on this one thing. The Wildlands Trust, I don't think, is going to fire us as a partner if it takes us a few months to pay this bill.
Sure hope not.
So, we are now aware of this, but we do have an action, I think, to get back to the Wildlands Trust and say, update these names. And secondly, we would have to file, or we would have to inquire, which I can do as soon as next week when they have the next month's CPA meeting. Float the idea of funding this through community preservation funds. How does that sound to the board?
Good.
So let's do those things. By consensus, that's what we'll do. So we kick that down the road. Next thing is upcoming meeting dates. We talked about that. We'll meet the 21st of this month, and then those 2 dates in January. It's very standard, the first and third Wednesdays. The FY 2024 budget, which is due December 16th. Does our staff have any comment on that? It's on the things to discuss here.
No, I'll have that done.
Okay, so our agent will take...
Basically, just so you all know, the budget will be pretty straightforward. Salaries for myself and Lon, and expense budgets, which will be basically flat funded.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever we asked for last year, we'll ask for next
Okay.
year. I don't have any other, unless you have inputs that you would like to fund.
We are budgeting you for full-time. I should say we're putting in for full-time continuing on into the new fiscal year, correct?
That was approved. I'll be putting that in the budget with a 2% raise.
That's the big spenders over here now.
Let's hear it. Okay. Budget is going to be managed in that way. The 2022 annual report, which is due January 20th. Again, our staff often has created the drafts of these things, and then we've looked at it before the deadline. Do we see
I'm
that
working
as...
on that.
But we've had a busy and a productive year.
One of the things that I've run across in drafting it is that we have a lot to say about trails management and so forth. I don't know how much y'all want to put in there, but it could be a really fat report.
It may be that report could refer people to another, call it an appendix, which could be made public in other ways. It could be put on Facebook, it could be posted to the town webpage, our portion of town webpage, because it's available there. We could maybe just hit highlights, or we could put in a lot of detail. What do you think, Dave?
I'm all for detail.
He's all for detail, yeah, guaranteed.
Whatever's reasonable.
We don't want to take over 3 pages of the whole report. But I think there should be enough detail so people grasp how busy we've been and how much has been accomplished.
Yeah.
They saw that at town meeting, but there were, most of the town was not at town meeting.
Well,
thank you for that.
I'll have a draft for you probably by the January 4th meeting.
Okay. Property management update.
No, I don't have much. Anything new now, as many as you noticed, Chris? Stand so tall? Yeah.
What was the question? The water committee?
Chris is keeping an eye on it, too.
So, we'll stay tuned for more updates.
So, Green Hanson contacted me, and they volunteered to build some broad bridges for us and, with us, and supply the materials.
Which locations are we seeing?
Wherever we want them. We need some at Fort Meadow.
It really is not on that up.
There you go. Let's do it.
I'll talk to Mary Ann.
And
In the short term or in the next construction?
No, they want to do them, she thought they could do something like,
One of the scouts.
here's the thought.
Doing something.
I don't know how you see that being organized, but if they are going to be under our quote-unquote supervision for any of it, constructing of it, placing out in the field, this and that, we should have each person sign a volunteer waiver form.
Yeah, we have some, don't we?
There's a supply, Lana's nodding. I think that should absolutely happen. That's a tool that we still haven't really used very much. This calls for that, I think.
Yeah, they're not talking about a bunch of just people that don't know. It says Mary Ann and her
Oh,
husband.
yeah, but still, the
No, I know.
course needs to be set.
All right, yeah, I'll contact her then and decide what her availability is and I'll just coordinate.
Perfect. That's good
Pretty
management.
simple, like once a good town.
Good management.
The only other thing I have is, are we gonna print these signs?
Let's look at them, and because I don't know I have it here, but you've got it right there, too.
You said we can make this one bigger if we want it bigger, or either one.
We want them up high, so they're not easy to vandalize.
We want it to be very difficult to vandalize, but we want it to be very readable. This would be aluminum, and this would be securely posted on either a post or a tree.
I'll screw them in like the ones you couldn't get off up at Pierce Ave.
That was good, that was secure.
I'll put Dave's ladder, he'll screw him in.
And the other one, Rocky Run? Oh,
Yeah, the other one's Rocky Run.
yeah. But let's look at the no littering for one thing. I've been told, and it makes total sense, when the police are asked to take notice, whether it's trespassing or dumping or ATVs, it's very helpful for them to know what it is they're enforcing. And this tells them that, Hanson bylaws and the Mass General laws. That's been researched. That $300 fine, you've communicated with the Board of Health about that, right? And check the bylaws.
In the bylaws.
From our bylaws.
Our bylaw, okay. The one that we...
Frank's a little skeptical, but I'm pretty sure.
It is, that's it. The Board of Health wants to know.
Okay.
That's a conservation commission or conservation commission?
You gotta take it up the gallows, he drafts the fence.
Well, the word Hanson is down below. It's
But on one page,
You're on a different page.
well, we're talking about this page right now, but...
Right, but he's talking about the fact we call ourselves, like, we refer to ourselves two different ways on the two different times.
two different pages. Not that it matters, but...
It's not consistent.
Well, these...
How do we refer to ourselves?
If we put the word Hanson in there,
Well,
it'll be better.
put the town seal on it.
and
Difference.
that's a good point. What we talked about is signs of this nature really should include the town seal, and wherever it fits on there, arrangement-wise, I think makes sense.
Yeah,
There's no question what town we're talking. Which conservation commission? Well, the Hanson one.
the one with the seal.
If the word Hanson can fit in there, great. I think it's legally fine the way it is.
Yeah.
If it'd be finer to have it say Hanson Conservation Commission.
Well, it's gonna change.
I don't think it was a legal finity, I think it was just a logical fallacy.
Hanson bylaws from...
Yeah.
But I think it probably makes sense to say town of Hanson on the one for Rocky Run.
Okay.
That's the town line.
Let's say if there's a motion on the floor to approve this sign with the addition of the town seal as the parentheses fit.
Both sides?
I'm talking about this no dumping sign.
Just the red one.
The no dumping sign. One action on this sign. I heard a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, it's approved. So we'll go for that.
Two of those, we're gonna get 10 of these.
That makes sense
It was either
because
10 or 12, I forget what it is.
let's get enough so we don't have to keep coming back to the well.
I think, what did they say, Lon? Was it 12?
I think 10 to 12.
It was either 10 or 12, wasn't it?
If there's a price break, go for it.
Last time said 10 to 12, so we hadn't decided officially.
That's all we were,
Why don't we say 12, because that way, when the first two get stolen, we'll still have 10.
I think we have like 9 properties looking
Yeah.
at, so.
Now, the other side, Rocky Run Stream Crossing, stone crossing designs are all over the picture. These do not alter, thank you, sorry. Will we put the town seal on this too? Or is that possible, do you think?
I think so.
Anything's possible.
He told me he could go to the next size up, because it might cost a little more, but I don't think it's much more.
On this one, I'd definitely go to the next size up. That's all.
Yeah. On this, we'll only need one of them, right?
We're gonna put two, one
Two.
face each.
Okay, so each way you're coming at the stream. However, the other side of the stream is tempered.
We'll put them both on our side.
Okay. There you go. That makes
We're
sense?
just on- There's a tree right there, we'll just put one right there.
So I think I would
So you
say,
gotta put our seal on this one too?
I would say make
I don't think it could hurt.
the sign a little bigger, the next size up, put the seal on it, and if there's space to fill, blow up the police or not alter the crossing road structure.
Yes.
You know, if
I
you're
think
trying
that
to
makes
save,
sense.
I would make that bigger, but not that it has to.
Dave's making notes, that's good.
Okay, I thought that.
That motion, which makes a great deal of sense, I will take as the motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And the quantity being two. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Rocky Run Stream sign is approved.
Yeah, I don't know what we do without you.
We do a lot less. Bay Circuit Trail, we had a very good meeting, two very good meetings this week. One is the trail at the county hospital property. As of Monday, the grant administrator gave us another whole year to finish the project. So we don't have to rush to spend the money. We can do it in proper order, and they were very pleased with it. Yeah. Well, the way it works is, the whole project is supported partly by CPA money, and they're gonna need accounting, which includes that too. But that's good, and the other thing is, today we had a remote meeting, from the Conservation Office. Lon and Dave and I talked with, two people with the Appalachian Mountain Club and the head of their trails maintenance group. That person supervises an AmeriCorps, which is a group of students that does work in June, July, and August. They do projects. They would be very, very happy to come and first do a site walkthrough in the very near future, but then later on actually do the lion's share of the work to construct the boardwalk and that stuff to connect the Bonnie Hill Trail across the wetland, and that's their cup of tea. They actually thought that if we found it was okay, they thought it's a 5-day project, it would be like a week, but a Monday through Thursday, 4 10-hour days. If they can stay at Camp Quaney, they love it. That's what that kind of team likes to do. So there was a lot of enthusiasm for that, and also the cost for that. The Southeast chapter of the Appalachian Mountain Club looks like they want to pay for that. It would be $5,000 to pay for this small team for that amount of time, and we could count that as, again, as part of the project, but it wouldn't steal money we've already got. It would add money to our project budget. I don't think there's anything there not to like. What do you guys think? We were hoping they could do it in June, but we'll see. The supervisor of that group will be here probably within the next month or something.
What specifically is the scope they're taking on?
Well, they want us to send them a sketch of the plan of what the boardwalk wants to look like, material takeoff, so they can estimate the hours, and they also wanted basically a location of it, so.
Of the site.
So they're gonna build the boardwalk we designed.
Yeah, without supervision.
Well, but they may give us some input, but.
They've done it before.
Phil and I have already talked about that, so make out a sketch, they've already done the material takeoff. We'll just do a sketch, send out with the material takeoff and pricing and everything, so they got all of that. And then I can just walk that with the All Trails app, and then I can just send them that, they just wonder where it is.
So they want to know the kind of landscape they're getting into, and easily done.
So easy enough to do, it won't take any much time, it's already mostly done.
Okay. I think that's it. Let's move on to signing invoices.
The cedar trees.
Oh, thank you for asking, because that's on here.
We're gonna need help on that.
I think we have run out of season. I don't know, and I'll look at the staff here, we said this just very, very casually, because it seems like every conversation, there's too many things to talk about. Despite my personal optimism, up until about a month ago, I haven't had the vehicular capability to drive to Amherst to buy button bushes for the Smitty's Bog, and the White Cedars for the Smitty's Bog. If we were going to have a big planting party for those and the button bushes, because of the delay of the button bushes, I think it's too late now.
The window is closed.
Yeah. You might do it, but you might not. if we approach this again, let's say, late March, if depending on the kind of season we have, if we have another snowmageddon winter, that won't be good, but I doubt we will. We'll have to revisit this in the early spring, I think. So,
Buy the trees?
we haven't signed any invoices yet. We will have to communicate with apologies, I think, to the vendor, because they've been going like, so, and then we have to rush them for an invoice. Thoughts, comments on that? Duly, well-deserved criticisms?
No, can't get the
Email
time
them.
back, we're just stuck with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've been doing so much, there have been other crises besides this, and we've met them successfully, but this one had to go. I had to go to the back.
If you happen to remember, Lon, could we throw this on an agenda in like late February, early March?
Yeah.
Where are the,
Yes, there
trees going? Are they going like in the bogs? or-
There's an area where it was part of our restoration that they approved, the small budget restoration, part of the, I'll call it the reservoir area, and some nearby spots, but yes, in the bogs, sort of where the bogs and the new water levels are close to each other. Wouldn't plant them in the water, but you also wouldn't plant them on a high dry spot. We'll have to pick and choose the spots. We know the kinds of spots we want to do, but we're running out of planting season.
How many was it gonna be, Phil, 100?
100.
Would it make sense to like, pick the locations and maybe layer out the area?
Yeah, we had picked the locations in our mind, but this gives us more time to do a good job of
But
that.
as far as like clearing out like all the red maples, like I could do some of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prep work.
We should talk, and that'll be good. I think it may be a blessing in disguise to delay it, because we can do a better job of preparing and
Yeah,
planning that.
it's a good point.
Very good point. Because I think along the edges of the old historic route of the stream, and again, the borders of this reservoir where we blocked off the unnatural outlet, preparations would be called for. Good plan.
How does that affect your collection of the money from Helen?
It defers our invoice to her by several months. I hope she's still employed there by the time we get this to her. But let's make a commitment that we will get it while she's still there. Not the Atlantic Light Cedar thing, but the other invoices, maybe we pass them along?
Did you want to,
Or what? Oh,
totally up to you.
if people would like a copy of it, we have, on the park perimeter trail, the Bonnie Hill Trail, we gave an update to the county hospital, which is now the High Street Park Planning Committee. This is that update, and there's a copy if you like. If you want to put a grocery list on the back, feel free. But that's been put out there, and it's basically from us, so you're all entitled to copies. Good stuff. People are very pleased with the trail, and the powers that be are pleased with everything.
It's a parking lot on Pierce Ave, off High Street, and it's a 0.8 miles. So you put a trail on there this September. Take a look at it. Take a walk up there.
This is a nice little walk.
I got,
This is another giant piece of the
I took,
annual.
there's still concrete blocks.
maybe we could be
I grabbed everything,
concise.
a lot of the other stuff, I don't know that I
Use
grabbed
your
all.
words, not mine, if you want to be concise.
Rather all those are dump. Can't throw away any cloth
Right.
at the dump, so I've still got the cloth, whatever it is, it's like an old waterbed mattress. Has some type of cloth around it, so I still got that. I can figure out how to throw that away.
State doesn't have a suggestion.
What?
The state does not have a suggestion.
The state does not.
They passed the law on that.
I'm waiting for, the Board of Health to come back on me, with me to tell me how to.
season,
What?
burning season.
I was thinking about burning it, but, I don't know that I can. I'll take it if you can hear it.
It used to be that a lot of cloth had value as rag input for paper manufacturing.
Doesn't sound like it's so.
I'll throw it in the dumpster, don't worry.
Can I bring it to the highway department? They're not allowed to throw it away either. Nobody's allowed to throw this stuff away.
Well, it may be that the official records of this meeting don't need to include all that difficult
It doesn't have
discussion.
to take effect till January.
What is it?
It doesn't take effect till January.
Oh, I think it's like November 1st.
Oh, is it the
Okay,
second?
no, it's in
I hope we didn't accidentally sign an invoice for the Cedars.
So I've reached
Oh, I
out
think
to
that's
the...
fine.
Did you hold it?
I think
That's because I don't want that.
Yeah.
Based
Let's
on
do it
our
over
discussion.
there.
More what he knows.
I got it.
Unintended consequences. We're gonna be available to do some, broad bridges if they're gonna buy them, say look for it.
Yep.
I'll keep you in touch, I'll talk to them first. They're gonna, I don't know how much it's gonna donate.
By the way, what I had envisioned for the planting of the white cedars and the button bushes, potentially some clearing of red maple, but actually, with my little tile spade, digging, or whatever spade, digging holes, not like to plant, but at least to mark the spot, and we could use these sort of metal flags on metal stakes to just
During COVID.
be able to find the holes in the spring, and then get out there early enough in the spring before other things start to really grow.
Yeah.
And
Right now, it's like you can see right through everything.
yeah, this is a good time to begin that planning, but we won't put the things in the holes until then.
When are we gonna be able to meet down there to let them know where they'll clear?
That's exactly what we're talking about. We haven't set a when.
Right.
Lon, this here, is this, that other stuff isn't needed? I mean, right, we don't sign that.
The original.
Okay, that's the original.
Yeah.
Thank you. Think you should,
Like a reminder.
do I?
I used to wait for, a medical member of the Conservation Commission to sign it, because it's out of town, before I could get promoted.
You have to wait for what?
A mythical member of the Conservation Commission, he moved out of town before I could get promoted.
Okay. Well,
So you can set up on stage?
I think we're doing very well in the agenda department, even though it's much later than I thought it would be. So, as the minute we're comfortable here on the signatures, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Stand by.
So moved, as soon as they sign it.
Okay, so hold that thought.
Stop right there.
Yes.
No pressure at all. I don't know. Can we switch to order seats here just for this? The pressure is on.
If you get here earlier, yes.
Yeah, can we do this at the beginning of the meeting, maybe?
Sign invoices at the beginning.
This is tough. Come on. I'm gonna be spelling it wrong.
It's E-D-H-E-A-L-E-Y.
I was hoping to dismiss.
Move to adjourn, is that what I heard? Do I hear a second? Second. Move and second to adjourn at 9:26. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, we are adjourned.